Morning. We've got a good turnout. We've got about 300 people here today, plus a webinar on Thursday, and that's a good sign that people are paying attention. I was thinking about this file this morning, and it struck me that it's a little bit like a Netflix series where, you know, a season ends and a wind-up letter gets issued, and it was like, in this 2 years, we're all waiting like for the next season to start with the regulation. So Charles will tell us all about that in a few minutes. Hopefully this is the first of a series of workshops that we will be putting on to try to build understanding of what's coming, what our role is in moving towards circular economy in Ontario under the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act. This morning we're going to try to build an understanding of what's the broad context for the legislative scheme, what's individual producer responsibility, what's our role at RPRA in that framework, and what do businesses need to be thinking about to prepare for what's coming. So you're going to hear from government, Charles O'Hara. He leads the nerve center in the ministry that is developing the policy and giving advice to the minister. We've got Pat Moran, our registrar, statutory decision maker at RPRA. John Pennard, who you probably don't know as well as you know Pat, is our director of IT, and he's going to talk about data security, which is important to anybody who's giving us commercially sensitive data. I'm really pleased that we have the Competition Bureau here. Roger Nasrallah is going to talk about their role, their mandate to address anti-competitive behavior. And we've got some important industry people here. We've got Gord Day and Steve Meldrum, who from two of our pros in Ontario. We've got Andrew Horseman, who's now at CRM, and Adam Moffat, Executive Director of the Ontario Tire Dealers Association. So I'm just talking for a few minutes about our role at RPRA. We are the delegated authority, the regulatory authority that was set up 3 years ago. We turned 3 on Saturday. We had 3 birthday cakes on Friday. It was too much cake, but we're 3 years old now. So our job is to implement the policies that are put in place by the government through regulations by the minister, through wind-up letters and other directions. The minister has described our evolving role as becoming a one-window clearinghouse for collection of information, and that's a reference to the registry that we are building that businesses will be inputting their data to. So today our core role is to support transition of the 4 waste diversion programs, the 4 legacy programs: tires, municipal hazardous special waste, electronics, and eventually Blue Box. That could expand beyond those programs. There's a bill in the House now that, and the minister has announced a proposal to have us use our registry to build a digital platform for hazardous waste. So we'll see if that decision is made. But for now, we're overseeing the wind-ups of the 4 legacy programs. We're building the registry to gather the data and measure performance. We are implementing the compliance program with the goal of supporting industry in adapting and forming the commercial relationships within the markets that are going to be forming. Our compliance role is focused on ensuring that producers and pros and service providers are registering with the authority, that the producers are reporting their progress and meeting their obligations directly or more likely through their pros, and that they're meeting their mandatory collection and management targets. So structurally, we are set up as a not-for-profit corporation. We're not an agency of government. We're not part of government. We're independent, but we have a very close oversight relationship with the ministry. We talk to them on a very regular basis. We're not taxpayer funded. We are funded through fees that we have an authority to charge to the businesses that we regulate. So we're accountable to the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks. We take direction from the minister. We report to the minister. The minister can ask us for any and all information beyond commercially sensitive information. He can give us policy directions. Everything we do is intended to implement the direction that we get and achieve the objectives that were intended by that direction. The regulations that we implement we expect will all be outcome-based regulations. That's how the legislation is designed. That's what the tires regulation is. That's how it's made. The other regulations out for consultation are like that. So very light on prescribing how things get done, setting the outcomes that regulated parties have to achieve. So outcome-based regulations, we're an outcome-driven organization. Everything we're doing is intended to drive the outcomes that we understand from discussions with the ministry, from the regulations, from hearing broader government announcements. We think those objectives are to minimize the burden on business, to facilitate the businesses we regulate in adapting to the new system that's coming, achieving the performance requirements set out in the regulations, and enabling a level playing field for the new markets that are forming. And we try to do that by being a facilitator. That's why we're having this session today. We're ahead of most of the businesses because we go in every day and we think about this, how to implement, how it's going to impact on business. So we want to try to help you get up to speed as well. We've been regulating under the RC for less than a year. We've just started tires, so rightfully the jury's out how well that's working. We'll talk about that today. We're attracting a fair bit of attention as a new regulator in town, which is natural and expected. The businesses that we regulate have every reason to wonder how we're going to implement our mandate. I mean, what could go wrong? There's a new regulator that gets to charge fees to a business and regulate. Well, maybe we don't understand how your business works. Maybe we're going to be a heavy-handed enforcer. Maybe we're going to try to impose our vision of what the market outcome should look like. Maybe we're going to spend too much money and not be held accountable. So if you have questions like that, you should watch how we operate and judge for yourselves. We're trying to keep an open line of communication. We're trying to do everything we can to support you in finding your way through seasons 2, 3, and 4 of this series. We get lots of feedback, not a lot of shy people. I've talked about communicate. We're trying really hard to communicate effectively, meaningfully, in a way that's understandable to a really broad range of businesses that we're working with, from one truck collectors to large producer corporations. It's not obvious how you do that. We've tried a lot of different approaches, and we're going to keep trying. Some things we think are working better than others. So we're very interested in your feedback on what works and what doesn't.